Hey everyone, I'm Carl Azus. Welcome to CNN 10. A shakeup in the U.S. government leads off today's show. Yesterday, the White House announced that Randolph Tex Ellis, the director of the U.S. Secret Service, would be leaving his position. Director Ellis says he was told weeks ago that changes were coming. The White House thanked him for his decades of service and said he did a great job. But the Secret Service came under scrutiny recently after an arrest was made at a resort in Florida owned by U.S. President Donald Trump. He's met several international leaders at his Mar-a-Lago club, and the accused trespasser is a Chinese woman who'd gotten past security, carrying Chinese passports and a flash drive with computer-threatening malware. The Secret Service says it does not decide who gets into the resort. But the incident raised security questions, even though the White House says Alice's departure isn't related to it. Meantime, Alice's boss, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, is leaving her job. President Trump made that announcement on Sunday. In her resignation letter, Secretary Nielsen praised the department's workers for their service and sacrifices and said she hoped the next secretary would have congressional support in fixing the laws that have, quote, impeded our ability to fully secure America's borders. The southern border with Mexico has been a major focus of the Trump administration. Last month, U.S. officials estimated they'd stopped 100,000 people there from entering the U.S. illegally. The government says that's the highest monthly number of migrants in more than a decade. Observers say the president was getting more and more frustrated about it. He'd even threatened to close the border. Congressional Democrats say Secretary Nielsen's resignation shows how the Trump administration's border security and immigration policies have failed. Congressional Republicans say Nielsen served honorably and that they're confident the Homeland Security Department is in good hands. Kevin McAleenan, the current U.S. Customs and Border Commissioner, will serve as temporary DHS Secretary until Nielsen's replacement is confirmed by the Senate.
Well, really what's going on at the border is it's almost like two different things, this confluence of events. DHS and government officials are predicting a system-wide failure because of these increased numbers of migrants.
I told everybody, you have a national emergency at our border.
With everything that federal government officials are saying, there is also coming with it a great deal of scrutiny. Many critics of the Trump administration are saying what they're trying to do is to create this sense of chaos to further their case for the national emergency and constructing more border wall.
What we see is that our community is being instrumentalized as a tool in a larger political game.
I'm at the McAllen Produce Terminal.
Trucks are supposed to be coming in here from Mexico. You see the piñata there with fresh fruits, vegetables, and other goods.
When you go to the grocery store and you select your fruits and vegetables, they're most likely coming from this part of the country. Because of the migrant surge, Border Patrol has reallocated resources from the port of entry to areas where migrants need to be processed.
For the first time, the United States says part of another nation's government is a foreign terrorist organization. That other nation is Iran, and the part of its government that received the designation is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, this is the second largest part of Iran's military behind its army. The IRGC leads or supports Iranian forces in both internal conflicts and international war. And U.S. government officials cited several examples of how the Iranian unit has participated in violence worldwide.
For 40 years, the Islamic Republic's Revolutionary Guard Corps has actively engaged in terrorism and created, supported, and directed other terrorist groups. The IRGC masquerades as a legitimate military organization, but none of us should be fooled. It regularly violates the laws of armed conflict. It plans, organizes, and executes terror campaigns all around the world.
The IRGC is also highly influential in Iranian life. The U.S. government says it controls up to half of Iran's economy by allegedly stealing from the people. In designating it a terrorist group, the U.S. is pressuring Iran by telling international banks and businesses to stop any dealings with this part of Iran's government.
It means that there are significantly more measures the US can take against anybody considered to have given tangible or intangible assistance to the IRGC anywhere in the world. They can be prosecuted on US soil or have proceedings brought against them. So it enormously increases the toolbox for US prosecutors or defense officials potentially if they choose to make moves against the IRGC. But I have to say, because this never happened before, we don't really quite know how practically it will be applied. The point is, though, it's the very hard talk we're hearing from the Trump administration against Iran.
The U.S. says it's been preparing to do this for months, and Iran retaliated yesterday by declaring the United States a state sponsor of terrorism. The Middle Eastern country says it considers American troops operating in the region to be terrorist groups, and that the U.S. government would be responsible for what Iran called the dangerous consequences. This is all according to Iran's government-controlled news agency. We're not sure how any of this will play out. The U.S. government says its IRGC designation will take effect on Monday. 10-second trivia. Which of these companies currently sells a smartphone that works on America's budding 5G network? Samsung, Apple, Google, or none of these? At this moment, there's not a phone on the market that's fully compatible with 5G. Motorola offers a modification that makes one of its phones 5G compatible, and Samsung plans to release a new 5G phone this summer. How big is the network they have to run on? Well, it's not. Verizon has 5G available in several U.S. cities, and AT&T, which owns CNN's parent company, Warner Media, says it's launched 5G in more than a dozen places. Industry analysts expect 5G to be available in 92 American cities by the end of the year. And as far as 5G readiness goes, a group that represents the American wireless industry says the U.S. and China are now tied for first place, and services are also available in several South Korean cities. But why are tech enthusiasts so excited about this? Why does it matter? According to the Cellular Technology Industry Association, 5G is going to be a major factor in the U.S. economy, changing education, robotics, and medicine.
Self-driving cars, smart cities, fully connected homes, robots. This is the future, and it will be powered by 5G. The G stands for generation, as in next generation wireless network, and it's going to be fast. About 10 times faster than the 4G network on your phone right now. Today it takes about 6 minutes to download a 3D movie on 4G. With 5G, it'll be 30 seconds. But 5G is about more than just super fast downloads and fewer dropped calls. It's really about connecting the Internet of Things, all those sensors, thermostats, cars, robots. Right now 4G just doesn't have the bandwidth for all those devices, but 5G will. That's why it's a game changer. Imagine self-driving cars instantly communicating with traffic lights and other cars, or a surgeon with VR equipment and special gloves operating remotely on a patient thousands of miles away. 5G will make that possible. But when? 2020 is the working date for most of the wireless industry. 4 nationwide carriers are already testing the technology. Chip makers are building processors and radios for 5G communication, and network equipment companies are building the backbone. But the future won't come cheap. 5G signals are powerful, but they don't reach as far. Making it work will require thousands, maybe even millions of mini cell phone towers pretty much everywhere you can imagine. Lampposts, the side of every building, maybe even in every room of your home. That's why rolling out 5G to the entire United States could cost $300 billion.
Sometimes a single picture can tell the story, and here's that story. Most pythons found in southern Florida are between 6 and 10 feet long. This female was more than 17 feet long. She weighed 140 pounds, and she was pregnant with 73 developing eggs. Pythons are an invasive species in the region. They began showing up in Everglades National Park in the 1980s, probably from pet owners who didn't want them anymore. So they were willing to let pythons be bygones, but with so many snakes alive, they threatened to change the region's ecological history. One that big would make some folks jump out of their skin, while others would want to bifold it into a wallet or try it on for shoe size. Whether you'd want her constrictly gone or you'd leather alone, a snake that big is truly pythonic. I'm Carl Azus for CNN.